So taking a breath, maybe just to acknowledge that we're formally beginning the practice. And I'm going to name very clearly that tonight's practice is oriented around a peak pose, but in a slightly unconventional way. The peak pose is not an arm balance, it's not an inversion, it's a seated, very classic pose known as Lotus Pose, or in Sanskrit, Padmasana. One of my favorite mythologies behind this particular pose is it tells the story of Vishnu, who's sitting on a curled up Ananda, who is his big snake, and he's reclining, and he decides that it's time to create a new universe. And a lotus flower suddenly blossoms from his navel. And then as the lotus blossom opens open, it's the four faces of Brahman, which is known as the god of creation or regeneration. And I love this mythology because it shows that even in that story itself, that the symbol of the lotus flower is often used as a symbol of regeneration, resilience, growth, and kind of like starting something new, creating something new. We're going to play with that as we move through our practice today. And we're going to start in Supta Baddha Konasana, reclined bound angle pose, with the soles of the feet together, knees wide. And we're not going to be here super long, about a minute or so you shouldn't need too many supports here. As you allow the legs to just kind of drop and let gravity kind of gently encourage them open. There's no pushing here. This is really a pose of just allowing gravity to do the work and letting the body settle and arrive into the practice. Lotus flowers bloom all around the world. You may have heard the somewhat popular phrase, "no mud, no lotus," which is acknowledging that the lotus flower grows in murky, muddy waters where its root system is embedded 3 to 4 feet in swampy, muddy water and has to grow upwards through distorted light to find the sun and bloom above that murky water. So as we take about 3 to 4 more breaths here in Supta Baddha Konasana, allowing yourself to anchor down as we start this warm-up sequence that's going to stay on our backs, knowing that part of moving towards the Padmasana lotus pose is feeling a sense of rootedness, of being anchored in the earth. You might take the hands and gently place them on the outer legs, and then close the legs as if you were closing a book, and widen the feet hip distance apart. Keeping your left foot on the mat, gently draw the right knee in towards the chest and give it a nice squeeze. And then instead of squeezing the right knee into the middle of the chest, allow the right thigh to slide to the outside of the torso so that the right knee is squeezing up towards the right armpit region. Take another breath or so there. And then we're going to start to extend into a very gentle hamstring stretch as you extend the right leg, reaching the right heel up towards the ceiling. A really gentle hold on the back of the right leg. Just a couple breaths here. You might even maintain a softening in the knee. This doesn't need to be too intense. And we recognize that approaching Padmasana or lotus pose requires a deep opening in all of the main compartments of the hips and the pelvis. We'll start to bend the right knee, cross the right ankle over your left knee, and with your right hand, gently open your right knee away from you in that figure 4 shape. And so the sequencing today is really targeting the hips, but from all different directions. Interlace the hands behind the left thigh, hugging the legs in, figure 4, or reclined pigeon pose. Just 2 breaths here. And then we'll start to lower that left foot back to the mat. Now, if this is intense for you, you can stay here. If your knees, ankles, and hips feel ready, use your left hand to guide the right foot up into the left hip crease, already coming into a sort of half lotus position here. Again, use your right hand to gently press the right knee away from you. Take one more breath here. This is just very kind of humbly approaching this shape. And then option to again draw the knees in towards the chest, a reclined half lotus. And feeling how this is targeting a different region of the hip here that we will need to be able to access for full lotus. Start to release the hold on the left knee, extend both legs up towards the ceiling, hug them in towards the chest, and then rock and roll along your spine to come up to Sukhasana seated pose with your right shin in front of your left. So right shin in front of left, ankles are underneath the knees, circle sweep the arms out and up, and then fold the hands straight forward. Walk the fingertips away from you. I'm going to turn to face you so that you can see this. As you inhale, lift out of the forward fold a little bit, lengthen the spine forward, and then as you exhale, recommit to the fold. So again, really getting into the outer hips here, a part of the body that we will need to have open in order to access lotus. Take one more breath, folding straight ahead. And then as you inhale, lift up halfway, walk your hands diagonally to your left. Walk the fingertips away from you, push the palms down, and pull your body weight back into your outer right hip. And take 2 breaths there. So it's like taking the side door into opening up that right hip. Last inhale. And then this is your first Vinyasa opportunity as you plant your palms at the front of your mat, step yourself back, and move through a really gentle Vinyasa. So inhaling in your plank, either lowering knees, chest, and chin, or in one solid piece all the way to the mat. Sliding forward and finding a cobra pose. This can be a really shallow cobra. And then pressing up and back to our first downward facing dog. Just 3 breaths here, welcoming in movement if that feels good. And then we're going to take that entire sequence on the second side, starting really gently. So we'll start to return to the back, lowering the knees, flipping onto the back, bringing the feet onto the mat. And then once you arrive there, keeping the right foot down, drawing the left knee in, and instead of drawing it right into the middle of the belly, let the left thigh and the left knee slide to the left and hug that left knee up towards the armpit. So anatomically speaking, there can be a few different obstacles that can keep practitioners from accessing Lotus Pose. It certainly can be the hips. Extend your left leg up towards the ceiling, clasping behind the left leg. Couple breaths and a soft hamstring stretch. So it certainly could be the hips, but it could also be the knees. You know, you may have a story in your body of injury or surgery that keeps the knees from rotating a particular way. Cross left ankle over right knee. Use your left hand to gently guide that left knee away from you for a full breath. And then as you're ready, interlacing the hands behind the right thigh and drawing the legs in for reclined pigeon. Just 2 breaths here. So in this part of the practice, it's like we're sending messages to the body of this is where we're going to need to go in today's practice. We're kind of preparing the body for the work we're going to do. Lower the right foot back down to the mat. And then you have the option to use your right hand to guide that left foot up into the hip crease, finding a reclined half lotus. Take a breath to push that left knee away from you. And then as you're ready, draw the legs back in for this reclined half lotus. And then the third part of the body that can really be an obstacle to practicing half or full lotus can be the ankles or the tops of the feet that can harbor a lot of tightness or stiffness. We'll start to release this, unravel the legs, rock and roll to come up to Sukhasana, this time with the left shin in front of the right, ankles directly underneath the knees. Circle sweep the arms out and up, and then reaching the fingertips forward, we begin to fold. We're going to take that intentional breath, lifting up halfway and really reasserting the length in the spine, and then exhale, softening the elbows and folding in. We'll hold for 2 full breaths. And so just know that in this practice, that the objective is not necessarily to do half or full lotus, even though they will be offered. There will also be a variety of other options offered alongside. Inhale, lift up halfway, walk the hands to the right. And then pushing down into the palms, let the weight of the body lean into the outer left hip. Perhaps more importantly is to embody the energy of the lotus, of pushing up and through distortion, murkiness, darkness, and messiness in order to find the light and bloom. We'll move through Vinyasa as you walk your hands to the front of the mat, stepping back to a plank position, and then keeping it soft as you lower either knees, chest, and chin, or one solid piece to the mat. A nice gentle cobra pose. It can be quite shallow, and then downward facing dog. 2 more breaths in down dog as we prepare to shift into the sun salutation portion of the practice, where we'll move a little bit more briskly. We'll be doing 5 sun salutations today, 2 sun A's, 3 Surya Cs or lunge salutations, just to get the body open, warm, and really just to get out of the head and into the body as we link the breath with the movement. Let's look to the front of the mat, rise up onto the balls of the feet, and then walk or step the feet forward to the front of your space. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, fold in, rising all the way up to your first mountain pose. Hands into heart center as we prepare to move through the first of 2 Surya Namaskaram A's. Inhale, sweep those arms out and up. Exhale, folding over the legs. Inhale, half lift. Step it back to your plank pose. Inhale there. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale into your back bend of choice. Exhale to down dog. Just 2 breaths here in Adho Mukha Svanasana, just enough to tap into that sense of stability. And then as you inhale, look forward, rise to the balls of the feet, walking or stepping forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, Uttanasana. Rising all the way up, Tadasana Mountain. Hands to heart center. Once again, Surya A, inhale out and up. Exhale, we fold. Inhale, half lift. Stepping back to plank. Lowering chaturanga. Back bend. Down dog, 2 breaths. Feeling the breath rising and falling in the body. As you inhale, look forward, rising to the balls of the feet, walking or stepping. Half lift. Fold. Rising. Anjali Mudra. 3 Surya Namaskaram C's, those classic 12 movements. Inhale, we stand tall. Exhale, palms together, position 1. Inhale, 2. I find these lunge salutations particularly valuable, folding over the legs 3, because they give us access to the hips in our sun salutations. Left foot back, left knee down. Inhale, arms up, feeling that opening in the front compartment of the hips. Exhale, step it back, down dog. Continue to keep the flow as you float forward and chaturanga. Upward dog. Downward dog. Left foot steps forward, right knee melts down, arms float up. Hands down, step it forward, folding. Rising, maybe there's a back bend at the top. Hands to heart center. 2 more. Inhale, stand tall, take the breath in. Exhale, complete breath out, hands return, position 1. 2, creating that arc in the body. 3, folding over the legs. 4, right foot back, right knee down, arms up. 5, down dog. 6, chaturanga. 7, urdhva mukha. 8, adho mukha. 9, right foot forward, anjaneyasana. 10, uttanasana, forward fold. 11, urdhva hastasana. Anjali mudra 12. Last round, just calling the numbers. 1, 2, 3. Left foot leads. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Releasing the arms, closing the eyes, pausing and taking about a 30-second micro meditation. Perhaps checking in with your sense of touch through the connection of the soles of your feet with your mat. And then feeling that sense of growth and rejuvenation flowing up the spine and up and out through the top of the head. As if you are rooted through the feet and yet growing and rising through the spine, the neck, the head, blooming open like a lotus. And we start to blink open the eyes. Today's sequence, I will let you know, this is a great time to take a sip of water if you need it, adjust your clothing. We're only going to do it once on each side. I know sometimes we have the time to do it twice on each side. This is a long sequence that will take us from standing to seated a couple of times. So just know that that's coming, and it will culminate in half lotus, and then we'll practice full lotus at the end of doing both sides of the sequence, okay? We will start at the front of the mat in mountain pose. So finding your Tadasana mountain pose with the arms extended. Give yourself a full breath in, knowing we're preparing for a long sequence, requiring some stamina, some mental resilience. As you inhale, sweep the arms out and up. As you exhale, fold over the legs, finding Uttanasana. We're going to step back and open to Warrior Two, stepping the left foot back, spinning the left heel down, and then windmilling the arms open to find Virabhadrasana 2, Warrior Two pose. I'm going to turn to face you, so I'm not facing the wall the whole time. We'll take 2 more breaths here in Virabhadrasana 2, focusing on this opening in the inner right thigh, which we will need for our Ardha or full Padmasana. We'll start to shift into our Trikonasana triangle pose. We straighten the right leg, start to reach forward, lower right fingertips either to shin, to block, or to floor as you find your Trikonasana triangle pose. Again, feeling that intense opening in the inner thigh, and yet simultaneously feeling the elongation of the spine. Start to turn your gaze down towards the mat, Finding your balance, we're going to sweep down and up into crescent lunge, sweeping left arm down towards the mat, pivoting onto the ball of the left foot as you bend your right knee, and then reaching both arms forward and up, rising into your crescent lunge position. Very nice. Couple breaths here, feeling this opening in the front compartment of the pelvis, the hip flexor. Take one more inhale here, and then as you exhale, sweep the arms around, either clasping hold of opposite wrist, opposite elbows, or if reverse namaste is in your box of tricks, you could take that. We'll hop the back foot in, plant it 45 degrees, preparing for pyramid pose. Now I can already tell my right hip is forward. So I'm going to invite my right hip back, my left hip forward. And then I'm going to broaden my collarbones. So imagine I came up to you and I just invited the collarbones to spread open. Beautiful. Take an inhale there. And then as you exhale, start to draw the heart forward and down into pyramid pose. Now this is a pose that is much more about integrity than it is about depth. So it's not about how far down you go or how close the nose is to the shin, but how long the spine can stay as you bend forward in forward flexion. Take one more breath here. And then we're going to release down into Anjaneyasana, low lunge. So unravel the arms, let the fingertips come down and frame that front foot, and then wiggle your left foot back, finding a low lunge. Let the left knee lower to the mat. Walk the hands up onto the right thigh. This is really all about the pelvis. So feeling that scooping action of the pelvis down and forward. Staying here, perfectly good, especially if this is intense. Or if you'd like to welcome in a quadricep stretch, you can lift that back shin, take a hold of the top of the left foot. Try not to lift the pelvis when you do that. Try to keep the pelvis low and draw the heel towards the pelvis. So again, we don't want this action. We want to try to keep the pelvis nice and low, yes, as we draw the heel in. Maybe sweep that right arm up. And then we'll take this into pigeon pose. So we'll windmill the arms down and walk the right foot over to the left side of the mat, finding our pigeon pose. Tail feathers elongate to the back of the mat. Inhale, lifting and opening through the heart. And exhale, folding forward for about 3 breaths. Walking back up onto the palms of the hands. You could stay here, which is quite an active back bend with the heart lifted. Or if you'd like to move into a quadricep stretch here, lifting the back shin, taking a hold of that left foot. If mermaid pose is in your repertoire and the body feels ready, you're welcome to slide that left foot into the elbow and find your mermaid pose. One more breath here. And then gently releasing, we're going to step it into a lizard pose. So you're going to tuck your left toes, kind of squinch your left knee in a little bit, and then the right foot is going to come around the right hand, stepping around. Give it a nice inhale to lengthen the spine, and then exhale, settle that left knee back down. Turn your right toes out 45 degrees. And then like you're blooming open, I want you to turn your heart to the right. Take your right hand, push your right knee away from you, and lean back and away from the right knee. So you can think of the body like a big flower that's kind of blooming open and pivoting up towards the sun. Take one more breath here. And then you're going to step it back to downward facing dog. As you lower the right hand, step the right foot back. Continuing in our sequence, we lift to the balls of the feet, walking, stepping, or if you'd like to hop the feet to the front of the mat. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, lowering the hips, bending the knees, and rising up into chair pose. Hands can be in Anjali Mudra into heart center. This is just a transitory position as we come into bonsai. I'm going to turn to face you. So you're going to take that right ankle, cross it over the left knee, and find that figure 4 that we had at the beginning of practice, and then sit the hips down and back. Good. Couple more breaths here. And then option, you can come to tree pose or standing half lotus. If you're coming in standing half lotus, left hand finds the right foot, and as you stand, you slide that right foot up into the left hip crease and let the right knee melt down and open. You could extend that right arm up, or if you're curious about finding a big toe bind, you could wrap it behind the spine and see if the big toe is accessible and extend the left arm. One more breath. Left hand is going to come to the waist. Release the big toe if you have it. Step your right foot to the back of your mat. We're preparing for revolved triangle. So right foot to the back of the mat, right arm reaches up. Again, check in with the hips. It's likely that the left hip needs to come back. And then reach forward as if you were coming into that really integrity filled pyramid pose. Then twist. Right hand to block shin or floor. Left arm reaches to the ceiling. Parivrita Trikonasana, revolve triangle pose. Everybody's favorite, right? 2 more breaths. Really important pose for opening the outer hips. And then walk the hands to the right. Let the feet follow you as they turn parallel to each other. Prasarita Padottanasana. Inhale, lengthen your spine. And exhale, fold in, crown of the head towards the mat. So I told you this was a little bit of a marathon sequence. We're almost there. We're in the final stretch, which is going to be a seated sequence. So inhale, lifting up towards the spine. Walk the hands to the front of the mat. Step your back foot forward to meet that front foot, and then start to bend the knees, lower down, let the knees separate. You're going to land in Baddha Konasana. So soles of the feet together, knees wide. Again, I'm going to turn to face you so you can see these poses. We'll take our peace fingers and we'll loop them around our big toes. Peace fingers, big toes. As you inhale, you lengthen tall through the spine. Exhale, pull the elbows back and the heart forward. Good. And some people like to use the elbows on the inner knees. You can do that as well. I like the action of pulling back because I actually can use my biceps a little bit to kind of get longer through the spine. Just one more breath here because we have 3 more seated poses. And then I'm going to lengthen out and up. I'm coming into Gomukhasana, cow face pose with my right leg on top. So I'm going to thread my left knee under my right. I'm going to stack my knees one on top of each other, like the lips of the cow face. And I'm not going to worry about the arms today. I'm just going to take a little toe lock here. Inhale tall and exhale fold in. And all of this is just preparing me to find that anchored solid seat that's like the roots that anchor the lotus at the base of that swampy, murky water. The roots that allow it to grow so tall that it can emerge through that murkiness and bloom. No mud, no lotus. Agni Stambhasana, fire log pose, lifting the spine. We're just going to slide the legs apart until we have right ankle over left knee over left ankle, and then folding yourself forward. This is the penultimate pose in the sequence, next to last pose in this marathon of a sequence. In the final pose, half lotus position, lengthening up through the spine, using that left hand to guide that right foot up towards the left hip crease. And what's nice here is your left foot is almost like a block. It's like a built-in prop that your knee can just settle on. And we'll take 5 breaths right here in half lotus. Maybe closing the eyes, feeling this sense of the pelvis almost being locked into place as the spine is tall and emergent up towards the light. One more full unrushed breath. And then you'll move yourself through a vinyasa as you lean back, unravel your legs, plant the palms, and move through vinyasa of your choice. Finding your way to downward facing dog. One of the things about the lotus is that water distorts light. We'll start this sequence on the second side. So as you lift your head, you look forward, step your left foot in between the thumbs, and spin up to rise into Warrior Two pose. First pose of the sequence, landing for about 3 breaths. And so the sunlight that filters through the muddy, murky waters is not pure. It's all distorted. It's very opaque, total lack of clarity, and yet the lotus finds its way. Trikonasana triangle pose, straightening that left knee, folding down. And so in that way, the lotus pose is often heralded as a symbol for resilience, for pushing through murkiness, troubled waters. Start to turn your head down towards the mat. We'll sweep that right arm down as we pivot onto the ball of the right foot and bend your left knee, rising up into crescent lunge. Taking a couple of breaths here to feel that opening in the front of the right hip. Good. And then we stay in the lunge as we set up our pyramid. So we sweep the arms around and we hold either the opposite wrist, the opposite elbows, or reverse namaste. Hop the back foot in. Find your stance. Feet are about 3.5 to 4 feet apart. Squaring up the headlights of the hips. Broadening the collarbones. And then from all of that integrity-based alignment, we start to hinge forward. And there's such a tendency to want to round the upper back here. So we want to think of drawing the heart forward and out. Last inhale, and then we'll lower into Anjaneyasana low lunge by releasing the hands to frame that left foot, wiggling that right foot back and lowering the right knee. Once you find your low lunge, walking the hands up onto the left thigh, keeping that pelvis nice and deep. We want to maintain that. If you have the ability to do that while lifting the back shin, do so, remembering that we don't want that elevated effect of the pelvis. We want to keep it low and draw the heel towards the glute. Good. Maybe lifting that left arm. Excellent. And then we'll take this straight into pigeon pose, Kapotasana. Hands windmill down, left foot migrates over to the right side of the mat. Tail feathers reach back and fold on in for a couple of breaths. And if you really observe all the different shapes you're putting your body in, you're actually practicing components of half and full lotus in various dimensions throughout this sequence. So that at the end of the practice, it's just about trying to put those elements together into a single shape. Walking up onto the palms, you could stay upright, which is a really nice active back bend. Or if you wanted to come back into that quadricep stretch, lifting the back shin, finding the foot, and some of you may choose to experiment with mermaid pose. Last breath. Big transition to lizard as we release both hands to the mat. We're going to use the power of that back leg to lift the pelvis and step the left foot around outside the left hand, and then drop back down, right knee down. We're going to turn the left toes out 45 degrees, left hand to left inner knee, and then the whole upper body, including that left leg, kind of blooms into this big circular shape, like a lotus opening and turning itself towards the light. Beautifully done. And we'll start to bring the hands back down, stepping it back, downward facing dog. Coming high up onto the balls of the feet, walking, stepping, or hopping the feet. Inhale to a half lift, and then sitting down, finding our chair pose. The chair pose is just a transitional place for us to start to bind our bonsai tree, left ankle over right knee, and sitting down. Get really stable in our standing leg, and then we start to rise either into tree pose, vrikshasana, or standing half lotus pose. You could always, one of my favorite variations here is to take the hand behind the back and hold the bicep of that opposite arm. So if the big toe is a little bit far away, the bicep is sometimes more attainable. Last inhale. And then we're going to step back and twist into revolve triangle. So right hand comes to the waist, left foot steps back, left arm reaches up. You feel square in the hips, long in the spine as you reach, twist, and lower. Right arm can elongate up. Couple breaths. I always find this pose is one that, like, I don't know I would ever do it in like a photo shoot, because I don't think I ever look like I enjoy yoga when I'm doing this pose. It's crazy hard and my head always looks bloodshot. One more inhale. Beautifully done. Walk your hands to the left. Let the feet follow you. Prasarita Padottanasana. Nice little break in the hamstrings, folding in. Just one full breath here. And then we're going to close with that nice seated sequence. Walking the hands to the front of your mat. Step the left foot forward to meet the right. And as you lower, the knees widen, the feet come together. You find yourself in that Baddha Konasana. Peace fingers around the big toes. Inhale, lengthening. And exhale, folding in. Using the breath to pick up the torso. Moving into Gomukhasana. This time left knee is going to come on top. So left leg threads on top. Stacking the knees as much as possible. And not even worrying about the arms. Just finding a nice gentle toe bind to fold into here. So it's like massaging open the pelvis a little bit with these shapes. And then opening into Agni-stambhasana, fire log pose. So you just let the knees kind of slide apart until the ankles and the knees stack like fire logs. And then you fold forward to whatever degree that's possible. I did this practice yesterday as well. And I woke up this morning and my body had all sorts of unkind things to say to me about doing this practice yesterday. So I'm sure it will have all sorts of things to say tomorrow morning. And then last pose in the sequence, half lotus. guiding that left foot up into the right hip crease and using your right foot as a kind of like a prop that's just built in. Finding a resting place for your hands in your lap, on your knees, and just taking 4 more meditative breaths. And then we'll move through a vinyasa here. So if your eyes were closed, blinking them open and stepping and floating forward to move through a vinyasa. So we are going to do our peak pose now of full Padmasana work by jumping and sitting into the middle of the mat. And you can start in Sukhasana, right shin in front of left, which is what we did in our opening sequence. To start, we're going to do that half lotus again, where you might lift that right leg. You might take a few kind of rocks from side to side. And then as you feel ready, guiding that right foot up into the left hip crease, there's your half lotus. You again could let right knee settle on the left ankle. And then you could experiment with taking that left foot and guiding it on top of the right thigh all the way up towards the right hip crease, so that the feet kind of pin the femurs down, which locks in the pelvis. That's that root system, so that the spine and the head grow upwards. Settling in for about a 30-second meditation on this side, seeing if you can find a position where you're at ease enough to commit to stillness and just exist as a body that is breathing in your expression of Lotus Pose today. One more breath in. And then as you exhale, opening the eyes, we'll take a vinyasa between sides. So you might need to use the assistance of your hands to unravel the legs. Step it back, flow through a vinyasa. When you get to down dog, it might feel good to kind of bend and straighten the knees a couple of times, kind of rolling through the ankles. And then we'll jump through to seated once again. We'll have the left shin in front of the right in Sukhasana. And as we begin to build our Padmasana, we can start by lifting that left leg, maybe just a little bit of rocking. And then as you're ready, guiding that left foot up into the right hip crease. This is a really good stopping point. And then if you're ready, you could experiment to see if that right foot can come up. And again, just acknowledging that there's lots of different obstacles to getting into this shape. It may not be the hips for you. It may be the knees or the ankles or the tops of the feet have a story that's like, sorry, this isn't happening today. And that's okay. Just take a different variation. And then committing to about 30 seconds of stillness and meditation here. Seeing if you can feel the embodiment of the anchored, rooted pelvis with a resilient, growing spine and the beautiful, blooming flower. And then opening the eyes, final vinyasa of the practice as you unravel the legs. And we'll lower the knees to the mat, finding a very brief child's pose, hips to knees. Feeling that release in the back of the pelvis. And then settling in for Shavasana. Some of you may like to just kind of slide forward and take Shavasana on the belly. Sometimes we forget that that's an option. If it feels better in your body to flip onto your back, by all means, please do so. And we'll settle in for about a 2.5-minute Shavasana today. For this Shavasana, I'm going to introduce a very brief reading from a book entitled Myths of the Asanas. and then just gift you with silence on the other side of the reading. Lotuses bloom all the time. They bloom all over the world, and they don't make a big deal about it. The lotus knows that to bloom is their ultimate goal, and that it's worth continuously reaching through the distortion to find the ultimate source of light. The lotus understands that struggle is part of the process, and the result is pure beauty. The lotus understands that struggle is part of the process, and the result is pure beauty. Without moving your body, allow deep and conscious breath to return, followed by subtle movement in the fingers and toes, wrists and ankles. Maybe extending the arms overhead for a full body stretch. And then in your own way and in your own time, returning back to a comfortable seat. As you arrive in your seat, feeling the pelvis anchored into the earth, the spine tall and elongated. And bringing the hands together into a soft prayer position, may the entire universe be filled with peace, joy, love, and light. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. And expressing a special gratitude and appreciation for the myths and the stories behind these shapes that bring so much more depth and appreciation to their teachings. Victory to all of our practices.